You've probably heard the news and, like us, felt sincere sadness about it, darn it. Boyd Matheson, host of KSL News Radio's Inside Sources, moderator of Sunday Edition on KSL TV, and a trusted voice and friend of our show, is stepping back to pursue new professional opportunities. Of course, we're so excited for Boyd to enter this new chapter because his goodness and his wisdom is needed everywhere. But as for us, we're a bit in mourning. We will miss his voice of reason, empathy, and compassion. But before he leaves, he graciously agreed to share with us a parting message. We'll discuss, as our goodbye chat, the gift of seasons, which feels appropriate in so many ways. Hello, friend.
How are you?
Why must you leave us? Why must you? I heard the news a little late, and I pulled out my phone, and I was shaky, and I stopped short of saying, why? We're happy for you. And what a gift you've been. It's a good chapter, a good season.
It's been a great
for you
season
to reflect on, too, I imagine.
Yeah, it really has. And I really believe in seasonal living. And I used to make the staff in Washington, D.C. when I worked there, I'd make them nervous. Every single staff meeting, I would say the founders of this country intended this to be seasonal work.
Oh, no.
So come in, work hard, go like crazy, leave a legacy, and then get out of here and go somewhere else and learn something new, contribute in a different point on the compass. And I think some of them got a little bit nervous with that.
They thought regularly they were out of a job is what they thought, yeah.
But I've always lived this way, that it's the best thing to do is to just approach everything as a season rather than this is where I'm staying.
That's a very elegant and soft way of saying it. The harsher word is change. You're good at change. How did you come to be this way, or who taught you to approach life this way?
You know, my parents were really good at this and just saying, look, nothing's permanent in this life. And the most important thing is that you're constantly learning and developing. That was always the big test at my house. What are you going to learn? What are you going to do? And so my whole career, we always say my career is a testament to if you ever want to make God laugh, just tell him your plan for your life. So we have a lot of those things. But one of the things that I have loved doing in my career is I've had seasons of my career where I've gone inside of organizations and I apply principles. I practice, I learn new things. And then I pop out for a season and I teach and I speak and I share. And now it's a season for me to go back in and apply and do and learn and explore new possibilities.
How do you know the timing? How do you come to trust the timing? I think for women in particular, the when is really hard. And a lot of us sit back and wait until the when is forced or asked of us.
Yeah.
But we're all kind of marveling still at Hoda Kotb as an example of this, who's on top of her game and choosing to step back from her role as co-anchor of the Today Show. How do you assess the timing of change or the timing of seasons?
So there's always kind of that gut moment where you say, I'm either feeling a little stale or I'm feeling like I need to lean into something, even if I'm not sure what it is.
So it's a self-assessment.
It is definitely a self-assessment. Or if you just kind of see everything kind of going on around you and you just kind of feel like you're going through the motions, you don't have that energy and drive that you used to have. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do a massive life change every time. You do this masterfully because every season of this show has its own feel and flavor. You explore something new, you add a new dimension. And so even if you feel like you're kind of in the routine of life, figure out ways to make it a new season where I'm going to explore this part of my personality, or I know I have this gift, I've never really leaned into that before. I'm going to learn something about that, or I'm going to just try something completely new. And so being open to that is a big part of it. Sometimes we get so in a defensive crouch, we get so holding on to where we are and what we've got, we kind of white knuckle it along. Yeah. And it's learning to exhale and say, what's possible? And where can I go from here? And that's where the magic happens.
I think a lot of families feel this in the smallest of ways and perhaps the more trivial of ways around like seasonal traditions. You think of what you've always done, and is there a twinge or a nudge to do something new or to do something differently? That's a very small example. Any other advice for people on how to approach life as more seasonal than set? Yeah,
sometimes we overlook at it. We look at, well, as soon as the kids are grown, or as soon as they're empty nesters, or when I get the new job or the new promotion, or this happens in my community, or I get into the new house. We prevent seasons from happening.
We wait.
By pushing too far out there.
Yeah.
And so we have to recognize that it's not about going back and just holding on to a cheap nostalgia, nor is it just looking into a kind of a misty future. Seasons happen in the present. They can only happen in the present. And just watching even the way nature goes, and here in the state of Utah, it's always beautiful. There's a natural rhythm to seasons. And I always found it's the best way to set goals for yourself. Sometimes we look at big 5-year, 10-year goals. They're so big, they're so far out there. You usually feel like, oh my gosh, I'm so far behind already. What I found is a 90-day season is long enough period to do something significant, but short enough that there's still a little bit of urgency to kind of get you moving and get you growing along.
That's a sweet spot.
Yeah.
It is interesting to consider the seasonal change of our state and our landscape. Again, trivial, silly example, but we switched out the lemonade bar for the hot chocolate bar at our house. And my 6-year-old said, "How fun!"
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I wish change felt that fun. But on a grander scale, it can. And I do like the challenge of the 90-day window.
Yeah.
That you found that to be a sweet spot in terms of timing.
Yeah, and it's actually interesting, even in athletics, the optimal amount of time to run, to prepare, to train for a marathon is 90 days.
90 days.
Anything endurance-wise, 90 days is just where you can work your way through, you can get that stamina up, and then you're ready for peak performance. So 90 days is really magical.
How might we apply this way of thinking, this way of living to our relationships?
Yeah, the relationships are so important. Sometimes we get so stuck and so in the steady. Again, we're either trying to hold on to something that we once had, or we're trying to project way down the path. And so just recognizing that in your relationships, your relationship with your children, they are very seasonal exercises with your kids. When they go from being that toddler and that 2-year-old, and then suddenly they're chatty and doing that, and to when they're in high school, you have different conversations, and embracing all of that and say, oh my gosh, I get a new season with one of my children. I'm having really fun seasons with my children that are all adults now. I have a son who's kind of looking at getting into the business and is in college and exploring. I have daughters who have 3 and 4 children of their own, and it's a whole new season in terms of that relationship. And the big thing is seasons are always about growing, and they're about renewal. Even the winter season is a time of refreshing, and it's a replenishing, and it's a chance to step back and ponder and think and reflect and then get ready for spring.
So this might be a gender nuanced challenge, but I always actually appreciate the opposite gender maybe weighing in on our particular sensitivities. Nostalgia. How do you keep the heaviness of nostalgia or the sadness of what was from creeping in and taking over?
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize that and to value it, but then also to figure out how you pull it forward, because the real power of nostalgia is not looking backwards, it's in the present. And what I have found when I look back at things, if I'm looking at it from the context of what do I need to pull forward from that, going back through a journal is a great way to say, wow, that was an important season of my life. I forgot the decisions I made in that season. I need to show that kind of courage in making a decision today. Or wow, I was willing to do this back during this period in this season of my life. I wonder what that means for what's coming. I know I've got a big change coming in my life. So
I love that.
Using it as a perspective is important.
And then in conclusion, around this topic at least, you say there are micro moments, like seasons within seasons.
Yeah. And again, I think this is where you do so great within the show, because there's seasons within the seasons, right?
Yeah.
And so all of that, recognizing that and to say, okay, I can make a little tweak here, and I wonder what that will bring into the world. I think those are really important moments. And then to recognize that as we go through those, you have people that come into your life for a season. Most people come into our lives for a reason, and then some just kind of come and then they linger and they hang around, and their impact just ripples through. It's those handprints on your heart moment. And so that's one of the things that I always take out of every season. You'll have experiences, you'll have successes, you'll have failures, but you'll always have the people. And to me, even though those things will change and my feelings towards people will change a year from now or 10 years from now, part of the difference in my life in this season today is you. And recognizing that is a big deal.
It is.
So thank you for letting me be part of this season of Studio 5.
Well, it's not hard to make me cry in this state, but we deeply appreciate you and the voice that you've been and the heart that you've brought to our show over these past many years.